Are we live? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dominique Wong Show, where we have grassroots conversations about current affairs. Today, we have Nalina Nair, who is Councillor for MBPJ, Zone 19, who is kind enough to share with us her personal journey in politics. Secondly, the role that she plays as a councillor. And lastly, the future of local government in Malaysia. So once again, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. We are so delighted to have you. So firstly, to start off, would you like to share with us your background and journey as a councillor, Nalina?
Hi, Dominic. Thank you so much for having me on with you today. And Harry, to everyone, hello, good evening. Hope you're doing well despite of the third MCO. So to answer your question, Dominic, a little bit of me. I come from a middle-class family in Kuala Lumpur, born and bred in KL. Attended Chinese vernacular school for the first 6 years and then went on to national school after that. I'm the eldest among 3 girls. And then I went on to study law, to read law. And yep, that's where I am right now. I am a councillor for MBPJ, which is the PJ City Council. And also Adun of Kampung Tunku YB Linggi Way Special Assistant as well.
Thank you for sharing that. You have a very interesting story because you come from a mixed race family and you have been in different parts of politics. It's also my information that you have participated in birthday rallies before this. And
Yes.
yeah, and also I like one point, you always wear nice saris to your councillor meetings. I see that on your social media. You make it a very nice point of minority representation. So how do we start?
It's quite a task to keep on wearing the sari all the time. But yeah, it is something that is nice to have visually to see different people being represented in all levels of governance.
Thank you. Can you enlighten us for the members of the public? What is the exact role of a councillor and how do they actually run the city in the city council within the organization? How does that work?
Okay, so the primary function of a councillor is very similar to the MPs and also the ADUNs, where they make policy. So the MPs make policies on the federal level, national level, and then the ADUNs make policies on state level. Then you have councillors, municipal councillors who come in to make policies on the city level or whether it's Bandar, Bandaraya, Daerah. So we make policies on that level, and we're somewhat like the board of directors of MBPJ, where we look at the city as a whole, what can improve, and also MBPJ itself, what can improve within MBPJ also. That's the primary function of councillors, but of course, like the ADUNs, the MPs, we also go to the ground. We listen to what people have to tell us, what they wish to have, and also their problems as well. So yeah, we function very similarly with MPs and ADUNs as well.
Okay. So just for a little bit of background, for those who do not know where is Petaling Jaya. So Petaling Jaya was founded in 1952 as a satellite town to Kuala Lumpur. Today, Petaling Jaya is divided into 24 different councillor areas. So we start with Zone 1, so that's in the north, Bandar Sri Damansara, Damansara Damai. And then we have Zone 24 in the south, in Sunway, Bandar Sunway City. So that's how we divide up the different places in Petaling Jaya. And I think Nalina Nair, she is the councillor for Zone 19 in Taman Paramount. So you can maybe share with us some issues and what goes on in your area.
Okay, like you said, Dom, I am councillor for Zone 19, which includes Taman Paramount, Taman Aman, and also Sea Park. It is one of the older areas in PJ. Unlike Damansara Utama, Bandar Utama, they're a bit more young and hip, but
Yeah.
I think Taman Paramount is catching up. We've got a few nice hip cafes there as well, nice places to hang out. But yeah, it is a pretty old area of PJ, and we have a lot of senior citizens in our area. So making the place more accessible is one of the things that would be great to do. And the previous councillor before me, Encik Farhan Haziq, has started this with OKU parkings, made more available, more accessible to people who need it. Also infrastructure, everyday things like roads. Roads are one of the things that we look at. Drains. Also cleanliness of the area, because unlike SS2's got a big business area. We've got a very small one in comparison with SS2, but still, nevertheless, cleanliness is very important at this type of business areas where you have restaurants, hawker places and stuff like that. So a lot of day-to-day things. Also, because it's one of the older areas in PJ, we've got a lot of big trees. Big trees, and also drains. Yeah, just now I mentioned drains. So I inherit a lot of drain problems because old drains bring big problems. So that's yeah. Those are the few things that I look at on a daily basis.
Okay, so you have mentioned a disabled parking, keeping the cleanliness of town centers, and also these two things, right? Basically,
drains. Well, there's a lot of day-to-day things where you have street lights that sometimes may not be working, and then we have to look into that as well.
Okay, so what's your work schedule like, right, as a councillor on your average working day?
Okay, I have the standard 9 to 5 because that's when the meetings with the council happens, during the standard 9 to 5. And then I can't expect to see my residents during 9 to 5 because they have their own 9 to 5 jobs as well. So I usually see residents in the evenings or the weekends. If it wasn't for COVID, then weekends would be quite busy as well, because that's when we would have outreach programs or even community programs with the neighborhoods. So yeah, if not for COVID, I would say day, night, weekend, weekdays, just whenever I'm needed, I will be there.
It sounds like every day, even Sundays and Saturdays. Wow. Thank you for taking time out from your Sunday work to join us today. Yep. So we have gone through the role of a councillor, some of the key things that you do on your average day. So what are the biggest challenges you face and the success you have made so far in this role as councillor?
Okay, so I haven't faced huge challenges, but I think one of the things that I would like to highlight, the first challenge that I had coming in as a councillor. So in PJ, trees are very sacred. We take our trees very seriously in PJ. We want especially the older trees with lots of shade and history behind it, we want to keep those trees. But unfortunately, sometimes trees also have a lifespan. They don't last forever, unfortunately. So sometimes these trees have to be taken out for safety reasons, because we don't want the trees to be falling on people, on property, cars and stuff like that. So sometimes there is somewhat of a debate whether it's good time to take the tree out, to chop the tree down. And that is one of the things that PJ really looks into. So the first week of me becoming councillor, we went straight into the second MCO. And the first big task that I had was a tree that was coming down 45 degrees already. So yeah, I had to make the decision to get MBPJ, to get the council to come and chop the tree down, clean it up, because we didn't want any harm brought to especially people passing by. So that was one of the first things that I looked into when I became a councillor. And the challenges that I've had so far, I think, would be being a councillor during the MCO, especially a new councillor. Like I said just now, in my first week of becoming a councillor, I didn't even have the chance to meet the council pengaras, the officers. I didn't get to meet anyone or just have a conversation with them. So it was quite odd that things still have to move. I still have to speak to them through WhatsApp, through phone calls. but just never really got to meet them, and they never got to meet me as well. So it's quite weird that I was like talking to people up there that I've never met. They never met me as well. So that was a bit of a challenge to get things to push, because but when it comes to building relationships, you must meet with the person first.
Agreed.
To build great working relationship. So I did lack on that in the beginning. So I think it was a not to say a tough start, but it was when you start the engine and the engine doesn't go, like it goes go.
Yeah.
It felt
Takes
like
a
that.
bit of time.
Yes, but thank goodness I have the previous councillor, Encik Farhan, who until today, if I have any questions that I need some background details, he's always there for me. I also have the Adun of the area, YB Limbiwe, who's also a fantastic support when it comes to questions or advice that I need. And also the other two councillors of my area, of our Dun in Dun Kampung Tunku, which is Mr. Ong Yutai and Mr. Billy Wong. They're fantastic as well. So thank goodness for them. I've got a good start.
Thank you for sharing that. During the MCO, so how do you have your meetings? Do you regularly have meetings at MPPJ? Is it all done on Zoom now, or is it still on WhatsApp? How is it conducted? How often are your meetings?
Okay, the meetings are all on Zoom now. Even during the second MCO, it was all on Zoom, and then we had a nice 2 months to meet in person, 2-3 months to meet in person. That was fantastic. Finally got to meet the people that I've been speaking to and trying to pull ends together. Finally getting to meet them, and now we're going back into Zoom meetings. But again, like I said, work never stops. The city never stops growing. There are always problems, always things to look into, new things as well that need to look into. So yeah, we don't stop despite the MCO.
Yep, sounds like that to me as well. So what do you do on your weekends if let's say if you do not meet your constituents, like during MCO? What do you usually do on your fun time and your own personal time? What are your personal hobbies, if you have time for personal hobbies?
Netflix.
Netflix.
Yes, Netflix.
The queen can do.
Yeah, Netflix is one of actually today was quite free. And yeah, I spend most of the time on Netflix, surfing Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that. But if I get to go out, unfortunately it's COVID, right? So there's just that much that you can do. But let's say it's not COVID, what would I do pre-COVID? What did I do pre-COVID? I love dancing. I love dancing. I know it's quite unheard of from people in politics to say.
A dancing councillor, how amazing is that?
So salsa, stuff like that, yeah.
Wow.
It stopped for a while. The community has totally stopped because of COVID. So fingers crossed that we get to go back to dancing again.
Sounds great. I look forward to your Zumba and your salsa sessions on the weekend, led by my own city councillor. Yeah, that would be very interesting. So what are the most memorable and interesting experiences so far in your role as councillor?
I think it's to get to meet people. We have, like I said, a lot of senior citizens.
Yes.
And a lot of them live in empty nests. So speaking to them sometimes can be quite a lot of fun, and sometimes it can be quite disheartening as well, because they're left alone. And they need help, because we all can't live alone in our little cocoon. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that I look forward to sometimes. But at the same time, because there's just so much to look into for them, it can be quite overwhelming sometimes, to be very honest. So yeah, it's kind of a balancing act.
Okay. So, for example, for members of the public who are interested to know, so now you have told us we work from 9 to 5 on an average day. You meet your constituents at night and over the weekends to know the community problems. So, how much is the remuneration? How much do you receive as a salary as a municipal councillor in Malaysia?
Okay, it's no secret. That councillors we get our allowance salary 2,500.
Okay.
Yeah, it's no secret. So yeah, that's what
Was that increase? Was that increase? Because I read the news in 2009, the entire MPPJ board decided to give themselves a raise. So it was twice shot down by the state government under Asmin Ali. So has that been implemented today? Has that pay raise been implemented today? Is there additional allowances that give the income to be higher?
Well, the reason why it's shot down in state level because we have to also look at the other municipal councils as well. PJ is one of the richest council in Selangor, so we can afford to go higher, but we also need to think about the smaller councils like Sepang, Selayang. Can they afford to go higher? So if there is a raise, it needs to be a raise state-wise. The whole state, the entire state together. So I don't see it rising anytime soon again, because we do have to think about the smaller councils, whether they can afford it or not. Okay,
fair. Yeah. So what is your advice for young people who might be interested to become councillor?
Well, okay, you've got to be interested in the work you do. I think that goes for any job you do, any profession that you're in. You need to like what you do. You need to like speaking to people. You need to like looking into problems. You need to love what you're doing. So I think that's the very first thing, to find out whether you really like being a councillor, or maybe later on an ADUN, an MP. Do you really like this in the first place? And then speak to people who are already in it. I'm always on Instagram, Facebook. Just text me. We can do a call together since we can't meet up. So do that. And then maybe if things click, then you can move forward from there. It can be very fun. Don't let the work hours frighten you. So I've had younger people coming up to me and asking me about the work hours, and then they go like, I don't have my weekends at all if I ever be in your shoes. That's why I say you have to like what you do, so that it doesn't feel like you're dragging yourself to work.
Okay. Yep, that's a very good answer. What is for young people? So now that we have covered remuneration, we have covered the role of a municipal councillor. Oh, I have one question now, just going back to the role. So 9 to 5, and then in the evenings, on weekends, you meet constituents. How many subcommittees and how often are those meetings that you participate in? And how often do you go on the ground? So we get an idea of when you go to the ground, when you have your meetings, and how many committees that you are part of. Yeah.
Okay, so MBPJ wise, I am part of 3 different committees. One is the Audit Committee. So the Audit Committee, one of the things, the biggest things, or the more often things that I've been doing with this committee is going down to look at roads, which can be very interesting. So I'm not an engineer by training, by profession. I'm not an engineer at all. Very bad in maths, probably would make a very bad engineer. So I had to learn on the job very quickly how to look at freshly tarred roads. We call this coring sessions, where it's like a little cylinder and they drill down to the road, and a nice chunk of road comes out, and you have to see, you have to audit the road. So how thick is it? Is it thick enough? Is it good? Is it hardy enough? Things like that. So we make sure roads in MPPJ at least meet a certain standard, so that you don't get potholes all the time. I know that's one of the biggest thieves, PJ people. our roads need to be good so that it doesn't have potholes. So those are one of the things that we do in the auditing committee. I'm also part of kemasyarakatan. So we look into welfare, not just the welfare of our residents, but also the welfare of MBPJ staff. At the end of the day, we do want to be good employers as a council. So we need to look into our staff's welfare as well. Happy staff, happy work, happy results, happy residents. So that's one of the things that we look into. And also, if it wasn't for COVID, then we would be looking into community programs, outreach programs. So how can we make PJ a more interesting place, not just a good infrastructurally a good place to live in, but culturally as well, a nice, conducive city to live in as well. And then the other committee that I am in, oh no, it's suddenly gone out of my head. So I'm in audit, I'm in kemasyarakatan, and I am in, yes, pengindahan. So pengindahan, because by default, that I have a pond, a lake in my area, I am in keindahan. Okay, so I don't know whether you heard of Taman Aman. I don't know whether anyone who's watching has heard of Taman Aman.
Is it near the Taman Paramount LRT station?
Yes, it is. It's a beautiful big park where you have a lot of green, a lot of trees, a lot of open spaces, playground, exercise equipment, and also what a lot of people think is a pond, a lake, but it's actually a retention pond. So let's say if there's flash floods and the water has nowhere to go, the water goes into Taman Aman Lake. That's the primary function of the Taman Aman Lake. So because I have that lake in my area, I have Taman Aman in my area, I am by default in pengindahan, where we look into, of course, the lakes. We've got actually quite a lot of lakes in Petaling Jaya. So despite all the development, yeah, we've got the Petaling Jaya one is one of the famous ones. A lot of people love going there. Taman Jaya is also another very famous one. So despite being a satellite city, one of the biggest cities in Malaysia after Kuala Lumpur, we actually have a lot of open green spaces with very nice lakes. So the upkeep, the maintenance, and all that kind of stuff. And also we've got Bukit Gasing as well, a nice place to go hike. So yeah, it's looking into these kind of things. And those are the committees that I'm part of.
Thank you for sharing the committees that you're part of. Moving forward, from your experience currently, through all your meetings, through your social engagements with people on the ground, what do you think we can do to make Petaling Jaya, like you said, a more progressive, a more forward, a more beautiful local council, so that we can really become the model standard for all local councils in Malaysia? So do you have any suggestions how we can move in that direction?
Okay, one of the things that I would love to look into, but haven't had the time to really sit and think about how to go forward with this, is to go into green energy, sustainable energy, solar to be very precise, solar energy. We need to lessen, we can't stop entirely using traditional, our usual way of getting electricity. We can't stop entirely, but we need to also start balancing it off with sustainable energy. So solar panels would be one of the first things to look into. So maybe starting with the council itself, we've got quite a number of halls, markets, food courts, and our offices as well. Maybe that would be a good start to have solar panel installed on our assets, and then maybe slowly then introducing it to private entities as well. So that will be one of the good things, and I think MBPJ should be should be spearheading sustainable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I think for people who read the news abroad, for example, some of us might have come across, like, the United Kingdom is phasing out all petrol diesel cars by 2030. And also a lot of companies, I'm talking private companies and public listed companies, they're planning to be carbon neutral in 2030 and also carbon net zero in 2050. So I think Petaling Jaya, as a leading and progressive council, has to take a more straightforward, a more pioneering and trailblazing role in making sure we meet global standards of green energy, recyclable, and environmental standards. So 2030, 2050.
True. So I did my final year of law in Aberystwyth, Wales. It's a little coastal town by the far end west of Wales. Quite far out there, quite difficult to get to. So it's a little seaside kampong. And even then, they had quite a lot of solar panels, sustainable energy going on. So if a little coastal town in Wales can do it, I don't see why Petaling Jaya cannot do it. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. So green energy will be your main focus in bringing Petaling Jaya forward. Are there any other themes that you've been thinking about for improving our governance for local councils?
OKU accessibility is one of the things, universal design.
Yes.
So because Petaling Jaya is a very old city, built back in the like before we were born, maybe before even our parents met each other. So we at that time universal design wasn't a thing. Unfortunately, now that we have all those buildings there already for many years, so it can be quite difficult to now incorporate universal design. But nevertheless, it still has to be done. So sustainable energy, universal design, making sure that our city is accessible not just to able-bodied people but also OKU people, whether they are on wheelchairs or they're blind. So just making our city more inclusive, I think that is the word to use, more inclusive, so that everyone can get around the city without having to think too much about where can I park, where do I walk, all those kind of stuff.
Okay. Maybe I'll try to name some of the PJ initiatives that I've seen as a grassroots resident. Maybe you can also share with us some of your initiatives at MBPJ. I think I've seen Eco Plaza, so a recycling center in Kelana Jaya. Yes. I've seen maybe some green city buses, free city buses. They're green color, yes. They run around LRTs. I know I've also seen like your billboards on the federal highway. So you want to be a green, low carbon city. So maybe I would like to know more about what else, or what are the steps that are being undertaken to make sure that 2030 Bandar Lestari, green and dynamic city vision pans out.
I think one of the things that we have is also the e-Aduan system. Okay. So you don't have to be going to the council building to lodge reports, or you don't have to do it so manually. Everything is online. Yes. So even us councillors, the officers, staff in MBPJ can follow up online. It just makes things faster. Instead of doing the manual way of going and lodging a report. Like a police report, you still have to go to the police station, lodge a report at the police station. You don't have to do that with MPPJ. It's as long as you have a phone. And you just snap a few photos of something that you saw and then just put it into the e-Aduan system, and we get it.
Okay, so e-Aduan is an app, right? Is it an app?
Well, okay. We have the app. We also have so there are various ways to lodge reports. Like I said, we want to be inclusive. We want everyone to be able to participate in making PJ a better place. So call, WhatsApp, email, the e-Aduan system. So basically, if you don't have a smartphone, you can always call up. That's not a problem as well, or you can send an email. Because we have to also think about the many senior citizens that PJ has, not only in my area but across Petaling Jaya as well. So while it sounds really nice to go fully digital, we also have to think about our senior citizens who cannot go fully digital. So it has to be a balance.
Okay. Moving on. So what is next here? How do you, for example, for citizens like myself who want to participate in a local council, what kind of activities do you run so that residents can join and participate in MPPJ activities?
Okay, let's say if you are not alone and you have a few neighbors who are also very interested in doing the same thing, then maybe you can build your own residents association.
Okay.
Yeah, so then you would be the eyes and ears in your area, specifically in your area, because the councillors can't be everywhere. The council can't be everywhere all the time. And sometimes as residents, we also need to take ownership of our own area as well. So an RA would be one of the great ways to be involved in council work, and also neighborhood work as well. The other way is councillors are always looking for volunteers. Aduns as well, always looking for volunteers to help out, whether it's welfare, whether it's community programs. We're always looking out for volunteers within the area who can come and help us. So, for example, Adun of Kampong Tungku, from the first MCO right up to now, YB Limiwe, she has been giving food aid to those in need. And sometimes it can be a whole lot of people who need the aid, and just a few of us won't be able to get the food aid to these people ASAP as needed. So that's when we call in volunteers to come and help us to distribute the food aid as well. And that's just one of the many things that councillors, aduns, MPs need help with. So that would be a fantastic way to directly get involved in making your place a more conducive, nicer place to live in.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I think now we're going to move on to a live topic. I think this has been on the national political agenda for a long time. As we all know, city council elections, local city council elections, have been a part of the 2018 Pakanan Harapan manifesto, but unfortunately, it has not been implemented. So, just for a brief history, I think in 1857, we actually had a Georgetown Municipal Council elections. So local council elections has been around for more than 150 years, more than 3 times the time we have been independent as a country as well. So I would like to get your opinion on is MPPJ ready if such a local council election is implemented, and the costs involved and the pros and cons, and are we ready to have local council elections?
I think we ought to be ready. It's high time that all of us, not just MPPJ, but the entire country, be ready for municipal council elections,
Yes.
and to bring back the third vote to the people, which is very important because right now, as a councillor, I cannot be held accountable by people who voted for me because the people didn't vote for me in the first place. It doesn't exist. So it'd be very good to bring back the third vote to the people, so that people can elect not just their MPs, not just their aduns, but also their councillors. Because it is at the end of the day the councillors who look into everyday things, like roads, like your drains, policy making of the city, the town. And how is it that policymakers of your neighborhood, your town, your city cannot be held accountable? It doesn't make sense. It's not right. And so, yeah, I think it is really high time. I think we've been talking about this for many years already, to bring back the third vote to the people.
Okay. So it's funny that we're talking about this because I think the United Kingdom had a Super Thursday. So that's a local council elections where they elect local councils, they elect the police commissioners. So it is funny that we are speaking with a councillor in Malaysia, but we cannot participate in the same election and democratic process we have in the United Kingdom. Yep. I think in Malaysia, I also personally agree with you in one point. Like back then, I think it was a more robust system, a more democratic system. It was more dynamic, exactly the word I wanted to use. I think in history as well, in 1956, we had local council elections in Georgetown and Penang. So what happened was that I think the Labour Council, so D.S. Ramanathan, he was the Labour Party. So you have a socialist Labour Party dominated local council. And then you had the Alliance Party, a predecessor of Barisan Nasional, so under G.H. Gore, winning the state government. So what we had was also another layer of check and balance. So the Labour Party in the local council also competing with the Alliance Party. So we have federal, we have state, and now we also have local councils. So I think it is also plus and also minus because I think some of the opponents, they will always mention like things like cost and the fact that sometimes local council elections have to repeat every 2 years. So I look at the years, it was like 56, 59, 61. So every 2 years. So are we prepared to make the ballot every 2 years? You know, and 500 billion ringgit, I suppose, for electing some 4,000 councils members across 400 councils across Malaysia. So I mean, this has always been what the other side has always complained. Do you have anything to add to these two things, like the costs involved and whether the check and balance is worth it, or are we going to have another protracted struggle, like a state and a federal and a state now with another local council level besides cost as well?
I think you can't put a price to check and balance. If check and balance needs to be done, it needs to be done. We can't say, oh, we're not going to do check and balance because it costs too much. Then we are inviting trouble. We're inviting trouble. We are then appointing, not even electing, appointing people that will not be held accountable. So I think we really can't put a price to check and balance. It needs to be done. So yeah, I don't see the merit in the argument of not bringing back the third vote to the people. I really don't see it. And as a resident myself, I would like to cast the third vote so that I know the person that I am choosing to be my councillor can be held accountable. I can go up to that person and say, hey, you're not deciding things in our interest, in the people's interest. So yeah, I think you can't put a price to that. You can't put a price tag. If it has to be done, it has to be done. Then if you're going to use that argument, then we might as well say, oh, it costs so much to have general election. Let's not have general election. Yeah, let's just choose the prime minister, and then the prime minister can choose 222 parliamentarians and the rest of the aduns. Let's do that because it costs less. So I don't think the argument holds water. It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Yep. I think what we should do as a government is to always give power to the people. So within the cost that we can afford, we should always make it more democratic so more people can participate in local government, in state government, in the federal government. And for my parents, for example, they also consider condo government. So you have JMBs now. So we have different levels of government in Malaysia.
Exactly. So your JMB, your MC, even you elect them, right?
You elect them. Exactly. So we should also be elected for our councillors in our city.
Yeah, so if you can elect people to govern your condo, why are you not electing people to govern your city? Doesn't make sense. Why is there a hole? So from your condo, you can elect people to take care of your condo, and then you elect people to take care of your state constituency, and then your parliament. Then, but why is there like suddenly a drop? Council wise, so yeah, that's something. Yeah,
something to think about. Yep. Local council elections, and also for the fact that we had a long history in doing this. 1857, as I mentioned, and also in the 1962, in the 60s, we had a very vibrant democracy. And I think a lot of people We feel that our country is more mature, is very educated, wants to become a modern democracy, want to have people's power, people's say in how their cities are run, have a very strong argument in bringing back local council elections in Malaysia. So I think the final opposition or opponent would be saying this lah. In this respect, do you think there will be too many layers of democracy? Will that bring in bureaucracy? Because we're already electing like federal, state, condo. So will it reach a point where we have too much in a sense that it will make things slow down because we need to ask everyone for every single pothole or manhole? There need to be someone to be elected for that? Or is it like delegated authority is enough for certain small issues? Like, where do we draw the line in electing everyone? Is it enough? But is that line drawn at the local councils? That's what we are thinking about.
Then, well, why, like you brought up condo JMB, why are we not drawing the line there? Even in class, I remember every year we would elect our class monitor.
Yes.
So is that then too much bureaucracy? No, I don't think so. So for something so important like city council that really looks into your daily life, how the moment you step out of your house, it is what the council is looking into. The road that you're walking on. Let's say if you go to the park and you want to go and get exercise, the park is not well maintained. You want to go and eat, the restaurant is not clean. All these little things, everyday things.
Yes.
How can you get someone who is not elected to make policies for things like this? So if we're saying that there's too much bureaucracy, I don't think it's true, because even if you appoint people, doesn't mean bureaucracy goes away. You can appoint someone, and bureaucracy can be worse than electing people instead of appointing people. So I again, doesn't hold water. Yeah.
Yep. And so I tend to agree with you on the fact that I think all of us, the moment we have a house, we have to pay local council taxes like assessment and quit rent. So I think all of us deserve to have a say in how these are run, because we are rate payers. I think that is a very fundamental point and principle in local council democracy. Yep. So, Do you have any more comments on local council democracy? Because I feel like this topic has been going on for so long, and it has been a core issue for people who are progressive in this country, who really want people in the government now to implement this agenda, but unfortunately has been fallen on deaf ears. Do you have any final words on this comments?
Yeah, I would like to see it come back one day. I would really like to see it come back one day. I would like to cast the third vote myself one day. And I would like to have other people empowered to make that third vote as well. So if there is any chance of it coming back, I look forward to it.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. I think we have covered most of the questions for today. So maybe if we have any questions, if anyone's watching, you may drop them in the comment box. If you have any questions for Councillor Nalina. If not, we will move on to final words.
Yeah, if anyone's watching and you want to ask questions, it can be from the serious questions that Dom has been asking me to what I like to eat. That's fine as well. I'll answer that as well.
Yeah, this is a good time to meet your local councillor, so you know what goes on in your community.
What's my favorite hangout spot in my zone? Yeah, just ask me anything. That's cool.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe Dom, you want to ask me a few questions while we wait for people to ask questions?
Yep, definitely. So,
A bit more light.
So what is your current project now that's ongoing, that you're working on as a councillor?
To be very honest, I don't have a current project per se.
Okay.
Right now, it's the day-to-day things that I'm looking at, looking into. So yeah, it's the day-to-day things, and sometimes the day-to-day things, the small things, can take up quite a lot of time. So yeah, But if you're talking about things that I'm looking into as somewhat of a project, I have a low-cost flat in my area in Taman Aman, and I think to make it a more conducive place to live in, where the lifts are working, because we always hear about PPR flats, low cost flats where the lifts are available but they're not working, they're not well maintained. So things like that, maintenance in keeping the flat a conducive place to live in, and also community projects within that area. So mainly B40 community, how can we enrich their lives? So that's one of the things that I'm looking into. Would love for COVID to end so that I can start having real good community events where we look into strengthening the community, so that they're there for each other. It's not always coming to us, the councillor, the adun for help, but also how they can, the saying, you don't give a man a fish all the time, you teach a man how to fish. So something like that. That's one of the things that I'm waiting for COVID to end. I can have programs online, but the reality is, I think we are having a fatigue of forums and programs online. So I don't think it's going to be effective in comparison with actually having a physical event in the hall of the low cost flat.
Yep. I think people miss that physical touch and going out and meeting, expressions and everything. So, for example, I think, like you mentioned, social inclusion, I think a lot of people, especially elderly folks, like my relatives or my grandmother, she would feel like isolated during COVID-19. So if there's any way that MPPJ councillor like yourself can help mitigate that, or trying to engage this demographic who are not always included on online activities and young activities, maybe you can come with some ideas or proceed with.
Yeah, we'll need to wait for COVID to be done and over with. So yeah, talking about that, I think this is a good opportunity for me to tell everyone who's watching who have not registered for the vaccine, please register for the vaccine. It'd be fantastic for you, for your family, and for everybody, if you register and get yourself vaccinated, because we really need this COVID to end, to go back to normal.
Yep. I think we have one question here. So the question goes like, how do you work with other councillors? How often do you collaborate with them, especially considering you have 24 different zones in Petaling Jaya?
Okay, so I'm very new. I only I saw in January. So of course there's a lot that I do not know, a lot that I need to learn. I have to admit that. And thank goodness we have senior councillors who are always ready to pass on their knowledge, what they've learned throughout the years as councillor. So I'm very fortunate to have senior councillors who I can reach out to, who can work together as well. And yeah, I think we've got quite a good network where all the 24 councillors speak to each other. Of course, we're not going to agree on everything all the time, of course. But that's the beauty, isn't it? That we get to discuss, to debate, and then come up with the best solution or the best policy, because we cannot agree with everything. And I think that is the beauty. There is beauty to it. So yeah, we've got 24 councillors, including myself, who are always very ready to speak to each other, to work with each other if needed.
Yep. So if there are no other questions, maybe I will start to wrap this up. Maybe you'd like to share with members of the public, how can they find you for anything that goes on in their community? How are you reachable?
Okay. So, well, since people are watching on Facebook, So Facebook is a great way to reach out to me. I have a page, Nalina Nair, that's the name of my page, and also me. So yeah, you just have to reach out to me from there. And also Instagram. I love Instagram. So yeah, I'm also Nalina Nair on Instagram. Drop me a DM if you have questions. Just a few days ago, one of my friends who's in a Facebook group saw someone asking, someone who's very disappointed with what's happening, and she asked, what can I do to make changes in my own community? And he reached out to her and said, I have a friend that you might want to speak to. So she then reached out to me and we started talking. So that was very nice. We started talking, and hopefully we get to meet after the MSO is done and over. So yeah, I'm always reachable on Facebook, Instagram. There's also my email address, Nalina Nair at mppj.gov.my. But nothing beats like a nice Facebook message. It feels a bit more personal than a very formal email. Unless if you're lodging a formal complaint, then yeah, email will be fantastic. Yeah.
Yep. You heard that, guys. You can follow her on Facebook. Find her Facebook page, Nalina Nair. Find her on Instagram, Nalina Nair. Find her on Nalina at mppj.gov.my.
Yes.
Find her there as well. Oh, we have one more last question. Just
Yes.
Before we wrap it up. Is there sufficient internal training for councillors to do their job before they start their role formally?
Okay. So right after the second MCO, we actually had a 3-day training session. 2 days, not 3 days. 2 days training session. Because we are in essence policymakers, so we need to know the law. You can't simply make policies that go against the law or go against the Constitution. I have a legal background. I studied law, but there are many councillors who come from different walks of life and need that foundation in law. So we had an extensive course on that. But many things that you will have to learn on the job. And nothing beats learning through experience. Like how do you speak to angry residents? I don't think that can be taught theoretically. This is what you say. This is what, maybe to a certain extent, yes. But you never know how to deal with it until you actually have it in your face to deal with it. So yes, we do have trainings, we do have courses and stuff like that. But nothing beats actually going down to the ground and learning on the job.
Yep, that's a very full answer. Thank you so much, Nalina Nair. Thank you so much for joining today. It has been so enlightening. I've learned so much about the role of councillor. Please follow both of us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, on YouTube. For this show as well, we hope to continue engaging civil society and to have grassroots conversations like this one to talk about different current affairs, even in Malaysia and abroad. We're also hoping to bring in international speakers soon, so please stay tuned. So with that, I would like to end today's session. So stay healthy and stay safe. Have a great evening, and thank you, Nalina, for joining today.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure speaking to you.
You too. Take care.